Hello, and welcome to another episode of Localized Miami. I'm Robert Ruano, and today we have a special guest in a fellow Gables resident and Commissioner Kirk Menendez. Welcome, Commissioner. How are you?
Thank you, Robert. I'm doing well. I'm grateful for the invitation to be here and speak with you and the viewers.
That's great. We're very excited, and it's actually a very important day, or let's just say it's a very news-filled day for Coral Gables. We'll say that. So we're going to get into some of that. But I want to talk about a couple of things today, and I want to know a little bit about you, although I do know some, as you know, about a history. I want you to explain to the viewers really the commission structure in the Gables, talk a little bit about the city budget when it was passed, and then I want to hear your vision and projects that you want to move forward with. And then finally, I know that you're running for mayor, so I do want to talk about that.
Sure.
And so we got a lot of things to cover in half an hour. But so tell me, everybody knows you're a coach, right? You were a coach, right? Coach Kirk.
Yeah, Coach
right?
Kirk.
You didn't coach me because I'm a terrible athlete.
I'm not that old.
But everybody knows you're a coach. But what did you do? Tell people first. What did you do in your profession? Where'd you go to school? I don't know where you went to college. Where'd you go to?
I've lived in Coral Gables my entire life, 62 years, and I went to Coral Gables Elementary a few years, then Dearborn, which was a block from my house where Mercedes-Benz is nowadays.
Dearborn was there?
Yeah, that's where Dearborn was. That amazing gym.
I had no idea.
Yeah, that's from the 50s, 60s, 70s until the early 80s. I ended up going to Gables High, and I loved going to Gables High because a lot of the kids that I grew up with at the Coral Gables Youth Center, playing all the sports, a great many of them went to Gables High with me. So it was just an extension of my experience as a child. Most of my time, my dad passed away when I was 10 years old, so my mom worked 7 days a week. She became a realtor, and thanks to my mom and our community of Coral Gables, which sort of helped raise me, I can honestly say I've had a blessed life because of living in Coral Gables and the community we have.
And where'd you go to? You're an attorney,
Yeah,
right? And where'd you go to college?
Well, I was at UM for a short amount of time as a walk-on field goal kicker. Spring of 1981, Ed Hudak, police chief, was there. He was bigger than me, and they had a scrimmage, and I made in the scrimmage a 45 and a 47-yard field goal, and just so happens my holder for that scrimmage was Jim Kelly, Hall of Fame NFL quarterback. Wow. And he was amazing. The highlight of my life is when I made the second kick, he turned around and said, "Great job," of which I will never forget him saying that to me for my two kicks. But I ended up graduating from FIU with a degree in psychology.
Oh, I didn't.
Yeah.
Okay.
When they only had 3 buildings, I think, back in the day. Now it's amazing what they've done at FIU. And then I went to St. Thomas University, where I graduated with a law degree and an MBA. I did both law and MBA at the same time. And from there, my first big opportunity was working at Holland and Knight. They were creating a consulting division, and they were looking for a young associate with a law degree and an MBA, and I fit the bill. So that was my first experience in a large law firm. At that time, it was the biggest firm in the United States.
What's really?
And then from there, I went to Greenberg Traurig and worked in their international division, which had huge telecommunications clients, especially out of Spain. And that was another great experience. But by the time I was at Greenberg Traurig, I got engaged, wanted to start a family, and I wanted a little bit more manage my time as a family, as a dad, as a husband. So I ended up working at the Cuban American National Foundation for a couple of years, also as a board member. I was a deputy executive director. And during that time is when the whole entire Elian saga came about, which I don't think anyone envisioned themselves to be in the middle of that. And somehow I did get up in the middle of a lot of those activities, going to Washington, D.C. to speak with members of Congress. When they took the Miami family the day of the raid to Washington, D.C., I was asked to escort them out of Miami to be in D.C. for the weekend, Easter weekend. And I ended up being Uncle Lazaro's translator on international press conference. Nobody wanted to, they realized Lázaro, the uncle, didn't speak English. So they go, we need someone who speaks Spanish. And everybody took 3 steps back. And I go, well, I'm here for a purpose. So I stepped up, and I got good reviews on the way up in Little Havana when I came back.
That's good.
And from there, an opportunity to work at the city of Miami in the city attorney's office. And I worked there for a few years, and I transitioned to City Hall. And I worked the director of government affairs, chief of staff, assistant to the city manager. And to me, that was quite the experience, because at the city of Miami, being in the law department, manager's office with the mayor and city hall, I learned a lot and of how local government works. And the city of Miami is quite a large organization. So, you know.
Yeah, let me ask you something, because how local government works, and that leads us to my next thing that I wanted to talk about is the commission structure, because I know Miami, people think that local government is all the same, and it's really not. So Miami has a certain structure. I believe it's executive mayor. The Gables has a council manager form of government. Can you explain that? And how many? So you're one of 5. Yeah. So can you explain the whole process? Who runs this? Who runs the day-to-day operations of the city?
The day-to-day operations is the city manager and his team. They're the ones who run. They receive guidance from the city commission. No one elected official has the power in and of themselves to dictate to the manager or to the administration what needs to be done.
So the mayor can't tell the staff what to do?
No mayor in Coral Gables has the power and the authority by the charter, and the charter explains it. And for those who are not familiar with local government, the charter is the equivalent of the U.S. Constitution, which basically lays out the roles of Congress, the judicial branch, and the presidency. So the charter but dictates what the elected officials do, the commission, the manager. And in fact, the charter dictates how you hire managers, how you elect elected officials. And the most pretty much that a mayor, any mayor in Coral Gables has, is you basically run the meetings, and you manage when people speak, when they don't speak, what items come up. But in terms of major decisions and what direction the city goes, it's something that's decided by all 5 elected officials.
Now that's great, but you mentioned something which is interesting. You mentioned that it outlines how you hire a city manager, yes. Okay? And you've gotten a lot of flack, and a lot of people have complained over the way Amos Rojas was hired in February, right? Mm-hmm. There was no process or anything. Does that charter outline the way a manager is hired, and did you follow that charter when you hired him in February?
The process is in the charter, and the charter says the city manager is selected, appointed by the city commission. It's a decision the commission makes. The charter doesn't say you do a national search. It doesn't go into those details. It's the decision of the commission how to proceed. Interestingly enough, historically in Coral Gables, there's only been, to my understanding, a national search one time in the last 15 to 20 years, and that national search result
turned out bad.
Didn't turn out very well.
Yeah.
And in fact, worse than anybody could have imagined.
Mm-hmm.
And a lot of recent city managers, they have been appointed by the commission because the commission knew their work, were familiar with them, and thought that at that time they were the best choice. So between even the last 2 or 3, the commission has taken it upon themselves to do what they think is right for that moment.
Yeah. Well, now let me ask you, because now we're on this, might as well. We found out today, which this will air tomorrow, but today we found out that Amos Rojas, the city manager, is resigning as of end of February. So what's your plan? What's your plan to replace him? What are you going to do?
Well, first off, when Mr. Rojas accepted the position of city manager, he, at that time, said he was going to be willing to do the job for a year. He had plans to transition after the year, and that was made public when the decision to appoint him was made. So they came to no surprise that he was going to transition away in early 2025. And I've had a lot of folks reach out to me in the community, especially a lot of folks that have been at Coral Gables residents for many, many years, even more years than I have, with certain suggestions on what to do and what not to do, or what steps to take and what steps not to take. I think at the end of the day, you need somebody that is familiar with the way things are run, and someone who works well and finds solutions to problems. I'm not here to look for a city manager that is a political creation. Perhaps there are a lot of folks that perhaps in other cities that bounce around from one city to the other, and they become more political than they are administrator. I'm looking for someone who's truly an administrator that can manage people. At the end of the day, it's about managing people.
So are you committing to do a search? Are you going to do any sort of search, or you think you're going to appoint somebody? How do you think that's going to work?
Well, in the past, like I said, they've done one national search, I think 8-10 years ago, and that didn't go well. And then other times they've just appointed. I think it's in the best interest, I think, of our community to allow Tuesday's commission meeting come about and hear the different thoughts and ideas of my colleagues. All 5 of us, I think, need to give thoughts in a direction that the city needs to go.
Where do you lean towards?
I lean towards looking for somebody that understands Coral Gables, knows Coral Gables, and that is not, the worst thing you can have in an administrator is someone that allows the political currents sweep them away. I want someone that can block out the noise, the political noise, and focus on the task at hand.
Okay.
And I'm not looking for a manager that does what I want him to do. I want a manager that does what's right and what's fair and listens not to me, but listens to all 5 members of the City Commission.
All right. Well, let me ask you, and it'll be interesting to see what happens. I'm going to look into that. But and speaking of 5 members of the commission, there's 3 of you that have gotten a certain nickname, okay? KFC, right? Kirk Fernandez Castro, right? Or recently, you've been known as the Triad, with you as the leader of the Triad. So I'm just curious, how often do you meet in secret? Do you have plans to take over the city? Like, what are you doing, secretly behind the scenes to push your agenda?
Well, to start off with, I haven't had Kentucky Fried Chicken in a long time.
I had some today.
I'm 62, and I can't eat like I used to eat when I was a younger man. For those people that have known me most of my life, if not my entire life, I'm here to serve the community. This is not a career for me. I did it because all these years growing up in Coral Gables, I saw elected official. I saw administrations decades after decades and decades, and I thought one day I can do that, and perhaps hopefully I can do as well as they do, if not better. So I'm here to help our community sort of. There's been a lot of turmoil, I would say, in the last year, 2 years perhaps, and I want to bring things in for a landing. Government should not be the focal point of what the residents' life is. People are more interested in their families, their jobs, their careers, and enjoying what Coral Gables offers. We should not be the show. For some reason, it sounds like some people watch commission meetings more than they watch Netflix. And that's not the way government should be. We should be...
Some of the meetings are better than Netflix.
Yes, and quite honestly, I've done everything I can to try to create... some people have described like a voice of reason. Well, I've tried my best to keep things as calm as possible, but, people are people, and they're entitled to say and do whatever they want to say and do.
Yeah.
But I think the city of Coral Gables and the residents are looking for civility and stability, and government shouldn't be out there with a billboard saying, look at me, this is who I am. I'm the star of, no, they want a government that serve. And to serve, you have to be humble and show humility. And I think that's the Coral Gables I grew up in.
Yeah. So let me ask you, speaking of service, and you've gotten dinged quite a bit about this, so has KFC, about the budget and the salary increases. So can you tell me about that? To be honest, I didn't research this because I wanted to hear from you. All I've heard there that it was 100% increase, but I don't know, was it, $1,000 a month and it became $2,000 a month, or was it $3,000 and became $4,000, $6,000? I don't know. So, can you explain how that whole budget, the increase for your salaries, happened, and what, and do you have any regrets about it, because you've gotten a lot of grief about it?
Well, unfortunately, in the world of politics we live in, no matter what you do, good or not as good, there are folks out there that will constantly criticize, and they use social media as a battering ram to just hit, whoever it is. The salaries, first off,
what was the salary at first?
Since the 1980s, it was in approximately $35,000 a year.
Okay.
For the commission. The mayor a little bit more, vice mayor a little bit more,
right.
The rest of the commission a little bit less. But in that $35,000 range since the 1980s. And when, the reality hit that the assistants, the folks that serve the commission, their salaries were in the $50,000, $60,000, and $70,000 range. And it's easy to understand that if you look at the history of elected officials at Coral Gables, most of them are attorneys, bankers, or the presidents of their own companies. Regular folks that report to a supervisor, they can't say, by the way, I'm out Tuesday, Wednesday, I have a budget workshop, Friday we have ethics, and on Thursday I have meetings with residents. I can't come to the office. They can't, because they'd be fired.
Right.
But we went from $35,000 to approximately $65,000, which is what the assistants make. That's the salary range. Right. And it's done primarily because look at the history of elected officials. People have come and gone, back from the 20s, the 30s, the 50s, all the way to today. That salary isn't salary for the person sitting there. That salary is for the position. So whoever is the next mayor, whoever is the next vice mayor, whoever is the next commissioner, next year, the year after, there's an opportunity for folks that work 9 to 5, that work for a business, work for a company. They're not the boss. Yeah. They can aspire to be an elected official.
Well, I get that. And to be honest, I really didn't have a problem with the increase myself. But I will say that a lot of what I heard was the process and the way it was done. They felt that it was hidden. Do you think it was hidden? Do you think it could have been done better?
The city attorney was asked at that time, what's the procedure to make a change in the salaries from 35 to 65? And the city attorney said the charter dictates what the procedure is. The procedure is it's done by legislation. And then the question is, what legislation? It says traditionally the budget ordinance. So the change in salary was included in the budget. There were several public hearings regarding the budget. I think a colleague of mine, Commissioner Menendez, sent out something on social media to explain what was happening. There was lengthy discussion during those meetings. And the city increased the salary range for several other positions that had not been touched for many, many years, all at once. So it wasn't something done out of the blue. It's something that's traditionally how it's done. In fact, I think in the 80s when it was bumped up, from 19,000 to the 30,000 back then, it was done also through a budget. So the charter dictates legislation, and the legislation was the budget ordinance.
Although now I think I don't know, is there something in April about it having to go to a referendum before it can be increased again, or did that die? I think there was some sort of
we created a charter review committee that every 10 years the city creates a charter review commission. And I think the last time Raul Valdez-Fali was the chair. This time former Mayor Donald Sleznick is the chair. And they're looking at several issues, including compensation, moving the elections, and things like that, to see which of many possibilities are items that we will send to the voters for changes to the charter.
Okay.
Because it's best to get input from the community and have folks that represent our community, like Donald Sleznick, to look at the pros and cons of a lot of these issues.
Yeah, no, and I really appreciate that they did the charter review committee, because the way it was going to be before was just, you guys coming up with a decision, and I don't think that's the right way to do it. So, but listen, tell me about your how long have you been a commissioner now?
Since 2021, April 2021. So I'm coming up now my 4 years.
4 years
as a member of the commission.
And what have your projects? What have you spearheaded? What have you been supportive of?
Well, one thing I'm proud of is, my whole life, my focus was community-based activities. One thing I'm working on is the Phillips Park, which is one of the major community parks in the entire city of Coral Gables.
I have to laugh because we were on the Parks and Recreation Board together, and Phillips Park was your passion 10 years ago, right?
Right. Well, it's, that area, Coral Gables, George Merrick had, we had the Coliseum back in the day, which was...
I worked there.
Yeah.
It was an amazing place.
And it was the largest auditorium in Dade County in the 1920s and 30s, built by George Merrick. And where Phillips Park is, they had a temporary football stadium where the University of Miami would have some football games.
Wow.
So that area, the vision of George Merrick was to make it very much a community area. And Phillips Park, I used to coach there some soccer games, and it really hasn't changed since the 70s and 80s. And since that part of Coral Gables is really growing with a lot of apartment buildings and a lot of people moving in, we need more parks that children and parents and grandparents can go to and come together, because at the end of the day, the heart and soul of Coral Gables is that community involvement that Coral Gables is famous for. You go other places in Dade County, you go to other places in South Florida, and you don't have those types of community gatherings, activities for the family. And I think our community recreation department with Fred and Carolina, they've done a great job of spearheading the transformation of what's to come for Phillips Park. Not only is it going to have a play area, a small splash pad, it's going to have some pickleball, some tennis, and a small soccer field in the middle for community activities. We have some plans actually with even some U.S. blind soccer program is interested in perhaps using Phillips Park. So it's going to be an area that's going to be for everybody. But we need more of those. We've seen the transformation of Salvador Park, how many families go there, and we need to provide more opportunities to residents.
Besides parks, what else? Park can't be your, thing, right?
One thing I'm working on right now is, City Hall. An engineering report noticed.
Okay, I have to interrupt you.
Yeah.
Okay, because what happened there? We're at our centennial, okay, and I'm not harping on you for this, but we're on our centennial, and City Hall is now just being shored for renovation. Why didn't, and I'll ask you honestly, because I've asked other people this, why didn't commissions before, managers before, mayors before say, you know what, 2025 is coming up. We need to get our City Hall done before the centennial. What's up with that?
Well, the honest answer is the administration never communicated to the elected officials that the situation structurally with City Hall was of great concern. The focus was, let's get some money from Tallahassee, $50,000 here, $50,000 there, to replace the windows, harden the windows, but never did the conversation go to, hey, there's a huge crack in one of the columns outside the chambers, tremendous crack, and the way the columns were built back in the 20s is not the way they're built today, so there's no inside the column.
There's no rebar, no?
There's no rebar.
Yeah.
And so what they're doing now is shoring up the beams and shoring up the columns to not only fix that column that has a significant crack in it, but after they do that, then they're going to go in and figure out, well, if that crack is there, what else will we find? We were never told of the seriousness of the situation. The focus was the roof and the windows. So unfortunately, there should have been better communication from the administration to the electeds. And unfortunately, we depended on getting all the facts, and sometimes the facts don't quite always make it to us. So I'm, exploring with the administration and my members of the commission the financing options, things that are available to, the reality is funding for major projects usually take 2, 3, 4, 5 years, and you may have 5 projects in the pipeline. And until the first one gets funding, the second one has to wait, and the third one has to wait. And if we can do funding that at no impact to the taxpayers, that we can take care of City Hall once and for all, our crown jewel with the Biltmore Hotel, I think that's the way government should. Government shouldn't kick the can down the road.
And so what you're proposing, though, is a general obligation bond, right? Is that ultimately?
A revenue bond, basically.
Revenue bond. Okay, sorry. Okay.
So this would not be on the tax bill of any resident.
Oh, okay. I'm sorry.
These are funds that we already have that are generated that would go to paying off the debt. But instead of using those dollars and accumulating those dollars over 5, 10, 15 years to address all these projects, we can deal with City Hall. Venetian Pool needs some significant work. And the one thing that everybody always wants is their sidewalks and their roads repaired because of the potholes and the cracks in the sidewalks. So the idea and what the administration is now looking into is finding a funding mechanism, financing mechanism to deal with City Hall once and for all, Venetian Pool, and sidewalks and streets within, and I asked the assistant city manager timeline, if everything fell into place. He says within 3 to 4 years, we could have it all done, as opposed to 5, 10, 15, 20 years. Mm-hmm. Why wait when we can do it now?
And by the way, you've seen enough government deadlines before. When they tell you 3 to 4 years, that's 5 to 6 years. Yeah. So let's mark it down now.
Yeah.
Let's see what it is.
You know,
it changes.
Well, and it's still better than the 10 to 15 or 20 years.
Yeah.
You know,
Rochelle, how much time do we have? Is she there?
A little less than 5 minutes.
Little less than 5 minutes. All right, now let's get to the coup de grace here. Okay. So you're running for mayor. You're a commissioner, but you're running for mayor in Coral Gables. I found out 3 weeks ago, I think, when you announced, or 2 weeks ago. So what made you switch from the commission seat to the mayoral seat?
I've heard from a lot of residents, folks that I've known my whole life, that they yearn for a Coral Gables, that the Coral Gables that they remember, where there was civility and stability, and the focus was on service. And I think the city sort of lost its way. We have become political, and Coral Gables was never known to be that political animal that you see elsewhere. And, like I said, this is not a career. I want to bring civility back. I want respect back, not only on the dais, but respect within the community. I don't think we should be getting in the way of our residents, in the way of our commercial residential. We should be asking them, how can we help you? We're not there to dictate to anyone what they should or they shouldn't do.
But okay, so you want civility, but what's your platform?
My platform is government for the people and by the people. They're the ones. We serve the residents. The residents don't serve us. Right. And it's the Coral Gables I grew up in.
Well, see, that's an interesting one, because here is what I've seen from some elected officials: government by the people, for the people. It's not always all the people. Yeah. It's a couple of people that have their ear, or one resident that doesn't like something's being done, so they want to curry favor with that resident.
Right.
So I think I hope that it will be for all the people and not just for the cliques or the groups.
Well, my entire life, based on my experience of giving back to the community, I've never distinguished between one group and another group and one person and another person. To me, they're all friends and they're all residents. And everyone should have the best service, the best response, the best quality of life. One segment shouldn't have something better than the others. I'm not saying bring down the quality. I'm saying let's increase the quality across the board. And let's find ways to address problems and come up with solutions. I want everybody to come together. I want everybody to come together and work together without pointing fingers and without dividing the community. We're a divided community.
And why do you think that is?
Because I think sometimes the politics comes into play, and I think you hit the nail on the head, that sometimes when you cater to one group, perhaps it benefits you in some way personally, but I'm not looking for personal, I'm looking for community-based solutions. I think, at the end of the day, we grow up, you grow up and you have a family, And it's the memories and it's the experience of being with your family and your kids in Coral Gables, which makes it all worthwhile. And I want to find ways that we can bring everybody together and focus what's good in Coral Gables. What's good in Coral Gables is the things that we can do as a community, the times that we can be together. No longer pointing fingers at each other, no longer talking down to people. Let's bring respect. Let's bring civility. That's the Coral Gables I grew up. I watched Dorothy Thompson, George Corrigan, Bill Kurdyke Sr. They led with respect.
Bill Kurdyke Jr. too.
Bill Kurdyke Jr., who I've known my whole life since at the youth center. But they led showing respect to the community, and the community respected them back. And that's what people yearn, and that's what I yearn. I'm 62. You know, I've lived a long...
Damn, that's old.
Well, you know, in the grand scheme of things, it sort of is. But
I'm just kidding.
You know,
I'm right behind you. I'm right there.
I think you're catching up. But, you know, that's what they want. They want to focus on the things that bring joy to their life. They don't want to look at conflict or division. They want to really experience the city beautiful.
All right. I don't think I can, you know, say anything else about that. I think that's a good place to end.
I think so.
It's been awesome. Thank you very much. Thank you, Commissioner Menendez. Thank you. Thank you all for joining us. Another edition of Localized Miami. We'll hope you'll be with us next time. And I would like to thank first our host, Michael Miller, our real host, Michael Miller, Community News, and our amazing producer Rochelle. Thank you very much. And in the studio audience, our good friend Uma. Thank you all. Have a great day.